Good morning and welcome to day 10. Today, it's about complaining before we start to speak. The complaining that goes on in our head. We're on a 30-day challenge of no complaining, and for me, I've had to find ways to be creative. And I tell myself, well, this isn't a complaint if I'm not expressing it, but it is, even though you're not expressing it. And this morning, I didn't feel like getting up. I didn't feel like doing my morning routine. It was one of those mornings where I was feeling heavy. I was complaining internally about people not supporting me, not feeling a certain way, just looking for a reason. And some people would call it being unmotivated or being down, whatever you want to call it, feeling heavy. But the bottom line is I never opened up my mouth to complain. And the feeling isn't the complaint. Feeling a certain way is not a complaint. But once I agreed with the feeling, once I agreed with the thought, I think that's when it took on a whole different turn. And that's the temptation that we all face, is partnering, is agreeing with the internal nudge. When you start saying things internally, I can't do this, or this day is going to be rough, or I just don't have it in me, or I don't feel like. You move from experiencing an inner emotion to marrying or partnering or becoming one with that complaint. And I'm not here to say that the feelings that you're having are not real, but they aren't always honest. They aren't always giving you a true representation of reality. And a lot of times those feelings are based off of conversations that we're having in our head. We're hosting these back and forth conversations about the future, about the past, but they're very rarely rooted in the present moment. And when we look at the stories we read in the Bible, they all had some sense of fear, grief, discouragement. And the issue wasn't that they had those feelings. The issue was what they chose to believe and speak and do after they had those feelings. And this morning, I realized, well, you can be down and just do nothing, or be down and do something. And it's in the doing, it's in the being that we move from those states of complaining to gratitude. Because sometimes we don't even want to be grateful. We don't want to think about the things that we can be grateful about. Instead, we go into this doom loop of all the things that aren't going right. And complaining, it starts before we open our mouth. I think it starts once we let our emotions take charge. We let our feelings be at the forefront. And then we start to listen to that narrator, that voice that's telling us, oh, this isn't going right. This person doesn't care. This thing doesn't do this. And so it's not about denying the feelings, but it's in line with our initial challenge of allowing. And it's to refuse to allow those feelings to dictate your day, today's story. So for me, for you guys, I strongly recommend just monitor. When you catch yourself complaining today, just ask, is this how I feel, or is this what I'm choosing to believe? And there's a big difference. How you feel and what you choose to believe are two separate things. Sometimes the way you feel is something you can't even control. You just had the feeling. It's too late. But then what you choose to believe about that is totally within your control. And you don't have to, be fake or pretentious about it. As you can tell, most of you would say my energy is a little different today. But I made a decision. I made a choice to show up. I made a choice to do the things that I know need to be done in spite of whatever feeling is sponsoring these thoughts, or whatever thought is sponsoring those feelings. So today's challenge is when you feel that urge to complain internally or outwardly, Just pause and replace the complaint with one truth, or one thing that's true. Even if you don't feel it yet. I feel tired, but I can still take the next step. I don't feel like, working out, but I can still show up. I don't feel like reading the book, but I can still open up a page. And these are things that I actually did. I didn't feel like reading the book, but I think I read a paragraph. I felt overwhelmed, but I only had to do one thing. I didn't have to agree with every thought that came into my mind. When you start to look at the overwhelming circumstances that you're in, it's easy to complain and say, oh my goodness, I won't be able to do this or do that. But one thing that I had to remember was God allowed these things to happen in my life. And most of these things are answered prayers. If you're looking at a bunch of debt, personal debt, it's expenses that you enjoyed, whether you took a family trip, whether you bought things. But now it's time to give thanks and to pay for those things. If you're looking at a relationship, maybe a door closed, give thanks. Maybe there's another door that's open, that's waiting for you to fix your attitude or to adjust your mindset before you walk into it. That customer that you wanted, the deal didn't go through. Well, maybe there's another customer that is going to be better for you. So let's keep on with this challenge. It's a challenge for a reason. It takes us out of our comfort zone and it pushes us into being something better. So I hope day 10 works out for everybody.